approximately 6:30 p.m. Stacy, are we okay on the recording?
Yep.
Okay.
We actually didn't stop, so we're just going. We'll cut out the middle.
Okay, good. I'd like to call the school board meeting to order at approximately 6:30 p.m. and ask that we all present stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Stacy, can you corroborate the notice of posting of the meeting and its places?
Yep, the meeting was posted in all appropriate places, including the SAU office, the schools, town offices, and the website.
Thank you. Okay, item number 2, non-public session. You'll note in the agenda that we state that that will be conducted at the conclusion of the public meeting for RSA 91A3, Section 2, subsection A. And when we're done with the public meeting, we will go into non-public if there is a vote to do so, assuming that's okay and approved, and then we will come back into public session and formally adjourn our meeting. I estimate that our return to public session under item 3 will be approximately at 9:30 p.m. Following the conclusion of the non-public meeting and the return to public and adjournment of this meeting, the school board present will remain for a non-meeting, but rather a collective bargaining session on the collective bargaining agreement that we have underway with the Newfound Area Teachers Association. That session is not subject to right to know, and there will be no minutes available for public scrutiny. If anyone has any questions, please refer to RSA 91A2, Section I, meetings open to the public and what does not constitute a meeting. So we are now at item 4, which is approval or modification of the agenda as approved or modified. Does anyone besides myself have a modification to the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, I would like to add item Z1, which is alteration of the makeup of the collective bargaining agreement school board committee, negotiations committee, due to scheduling conflicts. That will be item Z1. Does anyone have any other modifications necessary? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5, which is intercommunications. So for all of you that are present, I would ask that if you're not here as an official designee, to please sign in so that we can have your name and town and return this information to the clerk in its printed format. I believe there's a couple of clipboards over there for that purpose. So if you would, thank you very much. And anyone who would like to receive regular school board packets, that is all the information that is in the packets received by the school board, please send an email to Susan Cross, that is scross@sau4.org, for those of you that are watching at home. And you can follow along as well to get a copy of it digitally. This brings us to item 5C, which is public comment. We do this in a particular sequence. And before starting out, I did want to take a moment to welcome our student council liaison, Keegan Tracy, to the school board. So welcome to the board, Keegan.
Thank you.
It's good to meet you, and we hope that you'll speak up and have much to offer. In this section, we finish up, Keegan, with any comments that you might have to offer to the school board from the student council. So if you're prepared to do that this evening, that's fine. If not, we can wait till the next meeting. There are elected officials in attendance this evening. Is there anyone that would like to make any public comment from either of our two elected officials in the audience?
Nothing to comment on yet.
Okay. There's no one else in the public aside from our cameraman. Fred, do you have any comments?
Yes, actually I do.
Okay.
Fred Robinson from Bristol. I was reviewing the data task force spreadsheets, and I was a little concerned, and actually a couple people that I spoke to are a little concerned about the one column on there that has projected numbers on it, projected amounts. And some of those amounts are actually very large, the difference between what was last year's and what they're projecting. In one case, cost of benefits being at $1.247 million decreased. Now, I seem to remember when Mr. Migliore introduced his, or the spreadsheet, I shouldn't say his spreadsheet, that he did mention about the projected numbers, and I really don't remember. I was just wondering if at some point this could be explained to the public, how these projected numbers were arrived at, and whether the whole school board supports those numbers. Because if they're on a spreadsheet and they're not supported by the school board, then they have to be noted that they're not supported by the school board. So, okay, that's, and also many of the numbers, especially that have to do to staffing in our school district, may be in the red because we do have 6 buildings, and we are the only school district in this study that has 6 buildings. So that also has to be considered.
Could you clarify your comment in the red for those that don't understand what you're talking about there, Fred?
Oh, I'm sorry. As far as, yes, the high numbers, some things that are as red, indicating that they are high numbers.
Meaning
They may not
vis-a-vis a
necessarily
color,
be bad.
right, vis-a-vis a color code.
Yes, the color code.
Okay, as
Yeah.
opposed to negative.
Right. They may not necessarily bad the fact that we have more employees than some of the other schools.
Right.
So that should also be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Anyone else from the public that would care to comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 5C3, which is our faculty staff liaison, Mimi Freeman.
Who's really annoyed by this bee wasp thing that I'm petrified of.
Another good
Hear me
reason.
somewhere. Okay.
Another good reason
It's on
to
the
have
ceiling, don't worry.
hornet spray in the building in every classroom.
We're kneecapping away to beat the band. It's a long, exhausting process. Kids are tired, people are tired, but we're almost there. So it'll be interesting to see how it comes out. This is the last year we're doing this type of testing. I believe starting the next process, it's all on computer, which we actually got a preview of recently, and it's darn hard. So should be interesting to see how it transitions and how we're supposed to all do it at the same time on computer. And we don't have 300 and something computers in the building, so.
It'll be all at the same time, just plus. There'll be windows for each grade level.
Oh, okay, good to know. That's about it.
Okay, thank you very much. So Keegan, welcome again. If you have some information to share with us, now's the time.
Well, all juniors just finished the week of kneecaps, and pretty sure that all of them are happy that it's over. But and student council's in that transition of wrapping up homecoming and before winter carnival, so nothing is really going on yet. But so I mean, that's kind of all that's been going on. Yep, PSATs tomorrow, and
Okay,
so we're kind of at that slow period before winter carnival comes and everyone's all excited.
very good. Thank you very much for your input. I want to encourage you to express yourself on anything else you might hear this evening while you participate in the meeting. Again, thank you for devoting your time to us, too. Okay, we are We're now going to move on to item 6, but first, just a note of comment. Fred, you mentioned you were from Bristol. Is that,
Did I say Bristol?
Yeah.
I don't know why.
okay, but it should be Danbury, right?
It is Danbury.
Okay, got it. Just want to make that note correction. Okay, moving on to item 6, school board minutes for approval. First in your packet, you have the blue minutes for the Monday, September 9th meeting. A few pages. And I would ask if anyone has any corrections. I have a couple. Hearing none proffered, I will suggest that you take a look at page 3, item G. The Hill School District request an update. I believe that this should not read as shown, but rather as follows. Starting with the second sentence. They will be in contact with us once that has happened. Vincent Paul Migliore recommended to all that the board appoint the 2 vice chairs for the NASD and SAU board and the board chair for NASD to meet with the Hill School Board, comma, and to report back to the board. So that paragraph needs to be corrected accordingly. Were you able to get that, Leah?
No, I wasn't at the tape.
Okay. I have the notes and I'll share that with you. It's about 6:45, just for the record, to make it easy for you. Anyone else have any corrections on the minutes of September 9th? Okay. Hearing none, I would ask if there is a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
That is made by Dawn? Was it? Paul, I'm sorry.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Dawn. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the vote is 6-0-0. By the way, Ruby Hill, our vice chair, is excused this evening. She is ill. Meant to mention that earlier. Okay, the minutes of the September 23rd Planning and Dialogue session are now before you. Are there corrections? I have a brief one. Under 5A, second paragraph, it should read, Vincent Paul Migliore mentioned that he had received permission from the author of the video Communities and Consequences to show it at various times. He was also waiting to be provided with a link to a shortened version of modules of the video. Any other corrections? Okay. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Moved by Lloyd. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dawn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions?
I wasn't here.
Okay, 5 yes, no 0, 1 abstention, that being New Hampton. And 1 excuse. Groton. Okay, moving on to item 7 on our agenda. There are other packets in green in your, minutes in our packet. By the way, for those of you interested, there was a slide presentation given by our special student services director, Ann Holton, at our planning and dialogue meeting. And if you'd like to see that, they're attached to the minutes as well. The green minutes include policy committee meeting minutes of September 16th. And budget committee minutes of September 24th. If anyone has any interest or comments in those. We're now at item 8, which is correspondence and reports that are included in the packet. Does anyone have any comments on some of the reports? These are presumed to have been read.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
I just wanted to
Yes.
point out a change that I made to the special education report, the chart, the quarterly chart. It's on the back of the written out report. Previously, in the left-hand column, it stated special education students K to 12. I changed it to preschool to 12 because in looking at the numbers, I believe that the previous numbers included preschool students. And so I included preschool and changed the label, and I just wanted to point that out on the top 3 boxes. I just changed it from kindergarten to preschool.
Okay, so of those 6 boxes on the far left, the top 3 have been modified.
Yes.
Thank you. Ann, on your report, the other number that I would like to see on there is the total students number.
Total students enrolled number?
Yeah,
That's on the 12, I didn't include it this month, it's on the bottom of the ratio of special ed students to total. The total enrollment was
the 1207.
1207.
Right, but the reason I'm asking is that if you could include it in the summary,
Sure.
that'll also allow us to just derive a percentage.
Actually has it there.
And the other concern I've got, one point, the other concern I've got is that there are other variances to this number in other reports, which will pop up in a minute here. So I just want to try to get consistent on that, because we're now showing 1,207 students in the district, which is a decline from Q2 of 1,251. So, Paul, did you have a comment?
No, I was just saying, she has the total number of special ed students.
And the total number of students on this format.
Yeah.
This is the quarterly review. We don't get this report every month. We get it quarterly. So monthly, the monthly report would show the total student number, and that's been varying
You
quite a
also,
bit.
you do get your enrollment numbers every month. Which you'll see we revised as well.
Right. Okay, so if you would just add that, it would be helpful.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments on the reports? I think it's highly commendable that Stacy and Monica Jackson and I guess Mike received a scroll from the Commissioner of Education for reaching a goal of 0 dropouts, so that should not go unnoticed. As well as his notation of the student accomplishments, in particular the National Merit Scholarship semifinalists, David Gibson, Kelly Gallagher, and Megan Gelderman. And with Ashley Ruseski receiving a letter of commendation from the National Merit Scholarship Program. I think that's pretty cool. And also of note is that the Laconia Citizen selected Newfound Regional High School students Tyler Mavicki and Amanda Johnston as successive athletes of the week. So those are commendable comments. I'm glad to see we won't have any test fatigue this year for kneecap testing.
Vincent, are you finished?
I had one other comment on the dedication from Mrs. Donna Sprague for working in the kitchen at DES for 25 years. That's a pretty significant dedicated individual. So Ann Holleran recognized her in a report this month, and I think it's commendable for her to serve the district that many years. So I think those are all my comments on the reports. Sue?
And one of mine too was, one thing that jumped out at me was the 0 dropouts for school year 2011 and 12. That's excellent. So, Bridgewater Hebron, I noticed it says, once again, selected to receive the New Hampshire Partners in Education Blue Ribbon Award for school year 12-13. There were a few things that kind of caught my attention. Danbury Elementary School, 80% of their families attended their open house. Band events, I noticed that they're doing some interesting things. Traveling to Concord to perform at the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer Walk. Also, they'll be performing at the Manchester Monarchs versus St. John Ice Caps game, performing Star Spangled Banner and O Canada. So, good things. Yes?
Is that the high school band or elementary?
That is the high school. Well, wait a minute. That is the middle school. That is the middle school, yes. It says the 8th grade band. So, yes, excellent. And then it's the Star Spangled Banner in O Canada is the 7th and 8th grade band. Okay. So, great practice. And that's all that I have right now.
Thank you, Sue. Anyone else have any comments on the reports or correspondence?
Question for
John?
Mike. The 5,300, noticed that was negative.
5,300 function code.
Yep. Intergovernmental agency allocation. Is there a reason for that being negative?
Give me 1 second, I'm gonna jump in there.
Is that on the list? Is that the 5390?
Well, I was looking at his first page summary.
The same number.
That's the health insurance reimbursement.
Yeah, okay. So it's actually money coming in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Good job, Mike.
It's like a
Mr.
team
Chairman,
now.
this is actually Mike's first televised meeting. Maybe we should introduce him.
We didn't televise in September?
No.
That was the,
D&D meeting.
Oh. Well, for those of you at home, I think that's a good idea, Jeff. Good for you to keep us on track like that. We have with us Mike Lamani, who is our new business administrator, reporting to Superintendent Stacy Buckley. Well, we'd like to welcome you here officially on TV.
Thank you.
Glad you wore a blue shirt tonight. Okay, are there any other comments on any of the reports? Okay, hearing none, I guess we'll move on to our discussion items for consideration and action by the board. First at bat, did I disclose a particular interest of this evening? I probably shouldn't have said that. If you could pass a copy of that around. The first item for discussion is Community and Consequences, which is the impact of the lack of affordable workforce housing on the state of New Hampshire in general and on NASD in particular. I have handouts. This is mine. For those of us that are here, I believe there might be enough for everybody. Okay. Briefly, what I wanted to do was to remind everyone that about 4 years ago, we had taken this DVD that was produced by Jay Childs in Exeter on the issue of lack of affordable workforce housing here in New Hampshire and the impact that it has on local communities. And it's very significant, I believe, and it addresses, I think, one of the reasons why we are seeing a statewide decline in student population. And that's attributable to the lack of affordable workforce housing as a primary reason, not the only reason, but a primary reason. There are other contributing factors. And I was given permission by Jay Childs, to actually present this in a public forum and also on our cable TV network, which I would like to get the board's support to do. Now, some of you haven't seen this as yet on the board, but I know Sue saw it the first time around. And I know Stacy's viewed it individually, as has Ruby, our vice chair, and I have. It's also been presented a couple places around town, and I'd like for the public to see it and to view it at their own leisure. And if we can get Channel 25, I guess, our cable channel to put it up with the board's approval to do so, I think it would be very educational. And each of you that haven't seen it would be able to do so at your own leisure. I am expecting to get summary modules of several aspects of it that will be a shortened version. Its full-length version is 55 minutes in length, but it's very well done and very enlightening. And in this handout, it informs you that there is actually an RSA in the state of New Hampshire to help deal with affordable workforce housing. And this is educational as well. And if you go to look up RSA 674:58 through 61, you can get the information that is necessary on the topic. The second page of this handout defines what workforce housing is. It's defined as being affordable with no more than 30% of income being spent on housing, meaning rent and utilities or mortgage principal with interest, taxes, and insurance. It could be multifamily workforce housing, 5 or more dwelling units, and it could be reasonable and realistic opportunities to develop economically viable workforce housing considering the collective impact of land use ordinance and regulations. Now, without getting into or outside of our purveyance as a school board, what I'm suggesting is that people educate themselves on the impact on the community and therefore on the schools and the taxpayers and the budget, what that impact will be if parents of school-age children continue to migrate away from and out of New Hampshire, which is one of the reasons that our number of students seems to be dropping almost monthly. People who need workforce housing are entry-level teachers, firefighters, police officers, municipal and university employees, artists, nursing assistants, and medical workers, hospitality employees, retail and service employees. All the people that comprise a community, if you think about it from a basic point of view. And the RSA reference 674:58 through 61 recognizes that New Hampshire is experiencing a shortage of housing that is affordable to working households and is requiring an increase in affordable housing to serve a growing need within the state and to encourage local economic development. So by summary, I would just ask for discussion on this topic and for support of presenting the DVD on the cable TV channel as sponsored, if you will, by the school board. And that is the purpose of it being on the agenda this evening. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Sue?
there might be a need for this already with the work that we have in this area. But there's also been a concern in some places that workforce housing was provided at a greater rate than work was provided. So it just has to be something that goes hand in hand, you know, if there isn't enough work for the people that you provide the housing for.
One of the comments on the back page here is that economists estimate that for every 1,000 jobs created, 700 housing units also need to be created. And those units may be inside and/or within a reasonable commuting distance outside the town. So you're right, employment is very much related, but the underlying reason why we are lacking workforce housing, I think, is very interestingly outlined in the DVD, and that's why I want to encourage people to look at it. Most importantly, to see the impact on our communities. I don't know what the solution is, and there really isn't one proposed in here, but it is an issue.
And another thing to think about is that a lot of the people who do work in this area perhaps don't live in this area because they can't find the housing that they need. So they're living in other towns and the kids are going to school in other towns, and of course they're volunteering and doing all those things that young adults can do. So.
Well, my desire on this is to make this an educational DVD experience, and for those that would be interested in viewing it, to understand why the trend is the way it is. Even though the state's population has increased in New Hampshire over the last decade, the student population statewide has decreased 7%. That continues to be the case. I think you'll find some answers on the DVD. So with the support of the school board, if there's no objection to doing so, I would like to ask our cable TV station to put it out on their schedule for viewing.
Put that on the consent agenda.
Okay? So my motion by the chair would be to ask the local TV station to make it available to viewers in the district.
Second.
Well, at the time, without objection, as you suggest, Paul, we could put that on the consent agenda.
Is that channel only available within our district, or is it
Actually,
MetroCast-wide?
Actually, it's not available district-wide, and for that reason, I'm trying to get those modules that I referred to, which are available for online links and viewing from the producer. And they're actually shorter versions of the full content. And if we can make those available, they can be put up on the school website. But I just want to have the board's consent to do that. That's what I'm looking for.
But, well, you didn't answer my question. Is that channel available to all MetroCast subscribers?
I don't know the answer to that, but I know that I don't believe Danbury gets MetroCast.
No, I know Danbury,
So that's an
Ruby has said they don't get that.
Groton does not get MetroCast.
Okay, so that's a reason to have access via the link. Now, Mr. Childs has presented me with a URL link for internet viewing from his website. So with support of the board, I would like to notify people that that's the case. And we'll just do that on the school website. Put a link to it. It's completely voluntary if you're interested to view it, to understand why the population trend is diminishing, at least student-wise.
When they're done, I'm sure that the Plymouth Community Channel would air it as well.
I actually saw this first in Plymouth
Oh, did you?
when it came out 4 years ago, but that's a good point, so maybe we can pursue that with Plymouth as well.
And then the Time Warner subscribers would be able to view it.
That's what I was thinking when I was asking you about whether all of MetroCast's subscribers would have access to it.
Yeah,
There'll be other school districts, I think, that would have access to it as well.
Well, I'd like to think that that's true, and certainly for those that want to see it, if it can be revived in any way by word of mouth, you know, how things go viral. I think it's a good assessment of what an issue, of the issue that's before us all in the state. And so I'd just like others to formulate their own opinion after seeing it. They may not agree with what I just said, but be that as it may, it's informative. So, okay, we're now at item 9B, policies for first reading. JJF, student activities funds management, and IKFC, awarding of diplomas. Jeff?
It's good that Keegan is here, because this particular policy will affect the student council. The purpose of this policy is to bring us into compliance with some regulations regarding disposal of funds. Policy basically requires that within 12 months of a graduation date, that class has made arrangements to remove their funds from school district bookkeeping. Be it that they donate it to another class, or they have a scholarship or whatever, or create their own account, but in any event that the funds are removed from district bookkeeping.
You want to
This is a new policy. The other policy involves a wording change dealing with special education students who cannot meet the standard requirements for a regular high school diploma, and it just clarifies that they will receive a certificate of completion and not a diploma. It's not a change in practice, it's a change in wording.
If I can add, that aligns with what the regulations and laws say. In addition, Ann and I spoke, and we'd like to bring back to the policy committee for, as we process this through, some kind of grandfathering clause in for students who may be fall under this for this year or next year, because they may have been on the diploma track to get this. And it's not fair to those students who were anticipating this year to then say, we're sorry, now you have to stay in school for another 3 years. So, but we'll talk more about that at the policy meeting.
Okay.
For a small revision.
And the other thing I wanted to say is with regard to JJF, it will actually replace policy IDG when it's approved, and then we will recommend, IGDG, and we'll recommend at that time that policy be removed. But we don't want to leave us without a policy, so.
Any other comments on the policies as presented? Okay. That now brings us to item 9C, proposed resolutions for the New Hampshire School Board Association Delegate Assembly in January. There's information in your packet regarding School Boards Association resolutions. In the past, this school board has in fact submitted resolutions that were considered by and passed by the School Board Association in January at its delegate assembly, and those resolutions are supported by all school boards in the state to the state legislature and deal with issues that are important, of mutual importance. So now is the time, if anyone has an idea between now and I should say October 26th, for submission of a resolution for consideration at the delegate assembly in January. For the past few years, I have served as our representative to that and found it very, very informative and interesting what's going on throughout the state. There are significant issues that the School Board Association is either in support of or in opposition to, that affect education in the state of New Hampshire, as one would expect. This is the manner through which those things manifest themselves. Has anyone thought about a proposal or not to discuss for this evening? I don't have anything to put forth. Okay, seeing none, if you do have something in mind, we have a deadline of October 26th.
The way I read it, it's the 25th.
Okay, 25th. If we're gonna do it as a board, we should discuss it this evening, so it can come up again later if somebody has something in mind. But this requires some advanced thought, so. Okay, moving on to item 9D, the job description for our out-of-district coordinator. Stacy, did you want to comment on this?
Yep, so this is just a revised out-of-district coordinator. This is a new position we created this year to support our out-of-district students and bringing them back to district and supporting the, developing programs within the district for them. This has been vetted through the policy committee. They've reviewed it as well, and so this is the final kind of job description that we're bringing to the board for a motion for approval.
Okay, is any discussion, questions? Okay, now.
Do you want to move that to a consent agenda?
Well, when we take action.
Oh,
That now brings us to discussion on an update on the newfound nutrition matter that was tabled in the past. Before we move to take that from the table to take any action, I would ask Stacy to give us that report.
yep, we, actually, before Dan left, he and I met with Phil, our food service director. If you recall, the proposal was to increase, the food service cost by 10 cents, the purchase of lunch prices for students, remembering that if you were on free or reduced, it would remain free or reduced at those prices. So this would really be a 10-cent increase for people who are eligible to pay. We checked with the state to find out what the consequences of not meeting the federal requirement. So remember, this was a federal requirement to increase the prices. So that basically, the cost was equivalent to the cost the state was reimbursing us for lunch. And their notion is that they should not be supplementing the district's cost, that we should be charging the same price as what they're reimbursing us for. Basically, the consequences of this are that we need to send a letter, if we decide not to increase the lunch prices by 10 cents, we need to send a letter to the state indicating that the district is willing to pick up all excess costs. And then we need to budget for those excess costs so that the taxpayers then would pick up that cost. Just as I did want to note that in 2012 and 13, food service was overexpended by $72,000. We have budgeted for 13-14 an over expenditure already of, we believe, $25,000, which is what we carried over into next year. So the district is already picking up a significant dollar amount of lunch prices. So I just want to point that out.
And if we vote to increase the charge effective next school year, would that cover us, or are we still having to write a letter?
I think you would have to write a letter for this year. But I think my gut would be at some point this year, if you increase the prices, it would comply with the law. So if you wanted to say, if you decided to do that, I would give us a time frame so that we can inform parents and make sure they were well aware. So maybe, December 1 or January 1 date, you know what I mean? Somewhere so we can make sure people knew that there was an increase and we could program for the increase and make those adjustments.
Did you might have given us a figure before, but do you have any idea what that amount would be, an extra 10 cents for the reimbursed meals?
Yeah,
or-
we do. So it's,
$600.
yeah,
What is it?
it's about $600. So last year we sold about 6,369 lunches. So figure if we've been pushing to increase, it's about $7,000. So it's about $700.
Really?
So, I mean, if you, on the flip side, it's not a lot when you think of it that way. On the flip side, if you added it to a student's lunch, now remember, these are not the free or reduced. They
Right.
get free or reduced. These are students who are eligible to pay and can afford to pay. So if they're not, or they haven't applied for free or reduced, if they bought lunch every day, it's an additional $18 a year per student. So it's not a whole lot of money. It's, so we're dividing it up 12 ways.
Right.
So there's lots of ways to look at it.
So by translation, the quote penalty to the taxpayers would be $700 annually, is that what I heard?
Correct, approximately.
Okay, or the penalty to the student would be $18 per year.
Right, if they bought lunch every single day.
If we decided to decline the support by not increasing the prices by 10 cents.
Right. So, and I guess I would say it's not a penalty to the student, it's just an increase in prices
No,
to
it's-
cover the cost.
Right. Okay. So when it comes time to consider that, we would have to move it from the table and then decide to take action, either yes or no, to raise the price or not. Any further discussion? Any other comments, Stacy, on that?
No, actually, Mike was playing around with some numbers, and I think we calculated it was over, to break even on food service, we'd have to charge over, a little over $3.
So, I mean, it's a program that in many school districts across the state, it more than breaks even, it covers it. Ideally, I'd like to carry a fund balance and a food service fund of almost a quarter, 1 to 3/4 worth of, 1/4 of sales. That way you can always improve equipment and improve the program. So you don't have much to do with that right now. So clearly this isn't a raising the prices solution. So we're going to be looking at the whole program as in many schools, the high school is what creativity and what you sell on the lunch line and providing the meals really boosts the whole program and allows you more quality food to be presented at the elementary schools. So often you'll hear elementary school parents saying, you know, why am I only getting this? The high school gets this. You know, so we can really make most of that up at the high school lunch line if we get a little bit more creative, sometimes giving kids a little more time to eat by getting creative with the lines. And that kind of thing, I think is what we're going to look at.
Some other districts in this area have privatized their lunch.
Yeah.
What would that look like?
I have done that, and I coming out of Dover, New Hampshire, we did outsource the whole entire program from what was in-district program. The benefits of doing that for me there, I haven't had a chance to evaluate this program. There's pluses and minuses to outsourcing these programs. To me, it was a program where the equipment was so antiquated. The staff hadn't seen raises. They didn't have good benefit packages at all. They're probably in the lowest percentile of the area for wages in general. So outsourcing actually improved their wages, improved their morale, and we're able to immediately upgrade the program. So what would have taken an in-sourced company to come in, you know, I should say, if I had just hired a new food service director, what would have taken him probably 5 years to fix, I was able to fix within 1 year. I don't think your programs are in that bad a shape, but if you're not breaking even, you're not investing in that program to make it better either. So it hurts the many of your small elementary schools and so on. You also have some unique elementary schools, so the costs there per pupil are going to be high because you have to have one person there, whether you have, you know, 100 people or 50. You know, so those are the things we're going to look at. Can we get a little bit more creative with the delivery of food to those schools? So it's something, you know, after we get through this initial budget process, we're going to start really looking into food services because there's a lot of great things you can do for a low cost, including utilizing local vendors, which our outsourced company did too. So there shouldn't be a huge fear. We're not going out to India to outsource this. It's very local, and we keep and for us, we kept the majority of our staff.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
That was that was one of the concerns too with going with another company and outsourcing the whole program, was that in other instances, it was said that a lot of the employees there was a turnover in employees, that they tended to bring some of their own people in, so some of the people that were already here would lose their jobs. I don't know if that's true or not, but that was,
I think you could arrange it however
concern.
you work with a company.
yeah.
Companies do not want to restaff your program. I can assure you of that. What they want to do is keep your most valuable employees and make them better. And for many outsourced companies, we even provided them with more special professional development, because these companies are in many cases international or national, and they have a lot more resources than a school. We don't provide much in the area of professional development, and it's an area that, you know, isn't getting the funding it used to either across the district. Never mind food services and maintenance programs.
So these other districts that are able to break even, it's not because they're charging more, it's because they're doing things maybe a little differently?
We got a little bit, we also had numbers, so you have many locations for much smaller numbers, so the opportunities for increased sales are low. So one, we ultimately boost participation. We boost additional sales, specifically at your high schools, because that's your best area to do it. And you sell alternative items that can, and then for us in Dover, we're looking at getting students involved in part of that delivery device as well through culinary programs and so on, which gave us another front to the cafeteria, which increased the time they had to eat lunch and the time they had to front face lines. So those are the types of things that I think you can do here, whether you're insourced or outsourced.
I think we can consider some of these things as part of our budget discussion as well.
Definitely.
I think there's a lot more to look at than whether we're 10 cents off on our price. I think we need to examine a lot of stuff there.
Oh, yeah.
That is just a calculator requirement for the
Yeah.
state, and we're already subsidizing the program, so it really doesn't penalize us, you know, because we're already pumping money into it. The goal for someone like me is to look at it is to say, how can we not subsidize that program, get it to start funding itself and improving itself.
Okay, any further discussion on the nutrition update? Let's move on to item 9F. Stacy,
Yeah.
this is our,
Just an update on, I asked all the chiefs, the police and fire chiefs, to join Vincent and